Now, 252 billion naira is a huge amount of public money spent on security. Is there a correlation between huge amounts spent on security and the security itself? Does it mean that the more you spend on security, the less insecurity you have? Does it work that way, or there are other factors?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I want to say that I wonder the source of that figure, because I know that accountability and transparency has been a major challenge in Nigeria, especially within the subnationals. And so most of the so-called security votes by the subnationals, this time talking about the state governors, it's either their security votes, which to them, they are not accountable to anybody. Maybe those appropriated to the various either ministries or sections of the special duties under the governor. Okay, there you can source some of these figures. But whatever it is, when you hear such amount, it looks so big. But again, let's break it down to the various states and see how much particularly each of these states must have spent in 6 months. That's one second factor we need to look into. Then we also now need to go, the third factor is, again, looking at what was this money used for? Because that becomes another big challenge. Yes, the news says for equipment, for personnel, for trust funds and all that. I'll tell you that the security forces we have in Nigeria, both the security agencies and the armed forces, have not been well funded in terms of equipping them and in terms of their personnel allowances. The federal government take care of the salaries of the police and the armed forces. So the states do not do that. So we need to find out appropriately when they say personnel. Is it to the allowances, or is it to some funds that cannot actually, you can't place what it's being used for in actual fact. But looking at that money, again, we need to also agree that the inflation post-2023, this amount will have been, pre-2023, this amount will have been a little bit lesser, but things have become so extremely high these days. Security is expensive business, and that is why I've always said that we must make sure, we must invest in preventive security than curative or pursuing these criminals, because it becomes more expensive. But unfortunately, that has become the biggest, that has become the, will I say, the darling of the government in Nigeria. They fold their hands until when there are big issues, then they start calling the security agencies as, how much do you need? At that point, no matter how much you put in, you will not see the effect as much. And that is why, what brings me to the next point, that those amounts, that figure being pointed at, may not have been used appropriately to what it should have been done. Because when you do what is called panic spending, then the result you get is what we're getting right now, that in spite of the amount you are spending, the effect is not being felt by the people as such. But when you plan appropriately, then you can see the effect. I must tell you that there are some state governments in Nigeria, some states in Nigeria, maybe just about 4 of them, Lagos State, Akwa Ibom State, Enugu State, that has a structure of security expenditure that you can say, yes, this amount, this money is put into this particular use. But for some other states, it's like a bonanza, and that is the biggest problem we're having.
Okay, we've seen this problem, but Nigerians will ask, dating back, the security budget is always being financed. It's looked into. Sometimes the review comes and these monies are added to the budget. How come, till date, we still not have seen what these monies are being used for? Remember the Tocano, we can mention all of that. So can you help Nigerians watching this morning to understand really the process of putting this money in the budget and how is it being distributed to ensure that it is used for what it's meant for?
Okay. Yeah. Now, talking about budgeting, we have a very dysfunctional system of budgeting in the country, not just for security, but for every other sector, where you have what is called envelope budgeting system, where you are told your expenditure must not be more than this, or must just be maybe 5% or 10% above what you spent last year. It does not tell to what is actually being needed. And that is another challenge about budgeting. So budgeting, it is not based on what is needed. It's based on what we assume, you will be needing. So please give us a budget to this figure. I tell you that is a very, very wrong system of budgeting. I believe that the security forces and security agencies should be allowed to articulate what is needed per time, either in a short term, medium term, or long term, to help to plan and appropriate the funds. But again, when you hear about figures being appropriated for security or for other sectors, we need also question to ask how much was actually released, because this figure we are talking about may not actually have been released for the sake or for the reason of security, like that is being said. We know that the budget performance in the security sector, particularly for 2025, was abnormal. It was terribly less than in most agencies and most forces, services, less than 10%, 15%, or 20%. It all varies depending. Some never even got up to 5% of the annual budget for 2025. So it's actually a big issue. But the figures have been sent out. The figure is in the public. The figure that was appropriated. But the actual release, it's where the biggest challenge comes from. So those are the biggest challenges that comes to budgeting. The budgeting is, first of all, let us eliminate the envelope system of budgeting in the first instance. Those who support the system will say because government is looking at its revenue capability and capacity, and that is why government will say, look, don't exceed this amount. But if we must face issue of security seriously as it demands, then we must, as a matter of urgency, ensure that we appropriate the monies to what it should be used, and let the security agencies bring their actual needs. There you can query it. What is the need of calling them to the National Assembly when you don't? There's no reason to query because you have already given them a figure to fix their budget to meet. So really, our biggest issue is the issue about envelope budgeting, and these budget figures not actually being released on time and for what it's being meant for.
Ensure that they appropriate money for what it should be used for. So that means currently money isn't being appropriated for what it needs to be used for. If that's what you're saying, what would you say are the factors that are ensuring that this is happening?
Yeah, I think that there must be a reconnection between the bureaucrats or the technocrats or the government people who are in charge of revenue and budgeting and disbursement with these security forces to be able to understand the need. In security is quite expensive. The security equipment and material, not something you just go and buy off the shelf. You have to make orders, you have to bring it in, a lot of inspections and all that. So it takes some time. So you need to prepare for it. I tell you that in Nigeria, many of the security agencies, particularly the security forces and the police, they have people, they know what they need. They know what they need, say for 2 years to come, 1 year to come. They know what they need. You need to be able to tell them, what do you need? Where can you get it readily available, or where can it be manufactured to what you need, particularly depending on our terrain where we have epileptic energy system and all that, because some equipment, especially the software, some of these people need constant lights and all that, and you have them breaking down now and then. So a lot of issues. So the biggest challenge is that those who appropriate, and those who assign, and those who appropriate, and those who disburse do not have a good connection. When I mean a good connection, a true understanding of the security sector to be able to understand what these people need. And so they believe that just like you going to buy clothes or appropriating for budgeting for your clothes or for your groceries, you can just say, look, let me just go and buy what I need, and for now, then later I can buy the other. No, security is not like that. If you don't use the appropriate equipment for a particular operations, you will not get the right result. And that is what they must be understanding to that effect.
Now, Mr. Agbamu, as we speak, there's currently conversation ongoing about the implementation of state policing, and they're consulting widely. Knowing that different states in Nigeria have different security challenges that are peculiar to them, and also the finances of states are different, what sort of recommendation would you propose to make some of the states that might not be financially viable cope with security threats in their states, looking at their economy and financial power?
Thank you. One of the biggest challenges, I will also stress it here with Nigeria, is not doing the right thing. We like to do trial and errors. The state police, as it's being promoted currently, will not solve any of our security challenges currently. State police cannot handle insurgency or terrorism or all that. Not really. Even if the states are given power to set up their own police force today, they can't handle the enormous insecurity in most of those states that they have. So we must get that right. Even as they are all talking about, state police. I have said this also severally, that the state police is something that will help in a long time, not on the immediate. But now that it seems a majority or those in power and some Nigerians are saying, look, we need the state police, we should look at it. First, we are practicing a unitary system of government. Now, how do you handle the situation, like you just pointed out, the issues of some states who do not have enough resources to be able to finance state police? Because you may see where a state is paying their police officers for assume 200,000 naira. I don't know if that's possible. Then you see where some will be paying maybe 50,000 naira. You tell me, and Nigerians will go across many states for different reasons. So we're going to see a terrible situation in the country, and that makes that spoils the issue of our unitary system. If we must go to the true federalism that a lot of Nigerians have clamored for, which I say, yes, it's a solution to most of our issues, then we must allow states to manage their resources, to be able to also appropriate it to what is being used. For now, to be able to solve this issue of funding for most of the states, I will advocate that there's need to review the federal allocation system. Not where the center will be taking the lion's share, and the states and the local government, even though they don't exist in many states, are meant to share just the little amount, and that will not work in this state police situation. So there's need to urgently review and increase the allocation for the states. And there must be a very good monitoring system, which I tell you in Nigeria is not possible even in the next 5 years to be able to monitor appropriation, really, because we are going to see reckless spending even if the allocation that goes to states increase by some of these state governors who feel like they are more powerful than every other person. Is it the powers the state governors in most states exhibit is just so enormous that nobody questions them and nobody can ask them. Some governors don't stay in their states. Most of the time they stay in Abuja or Lagos and until when it's time to share allocation. And those are the biggest challenges. So for us to be able to get this issue properly placed and make appropriate fundings for these states, there's need to review the federal allocation ratio, and also to ensure that these state governors, whoever they may be, are accountable to the funds that they get, and maybe probably visit the issue about the true federalism, because before state police can function effectively.
Well, that's a lot to look into, but let's hope that a lot will change. You've talked about budgeting, the processing, and why we still have these challenges. We do hope that as we gear up for 2027, maybe after the elections and then the fiscal budget for 2027, a lot will change. I want to say thank you so much for speaking with us, Mr. Agbamu. It's been a very, very interesting one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.